Hi, I'm Robbie Bobby. This video is the 11th in a series that examines the laundry list, otherwise known as the 14 traits of an adult child. The topic is trait 11, which reads, "We judge ourselves harshly and have a very low sense of self-esteem." On the surface, this trait is fairly straightforward and easy to understand, but the more you look at it, the deeper it gets. The first thing I'd like to point out is its circular nature. Judging ourselves harshly will definitely lower our self-esteem. This is true. But low self-esteem creates the foundation for judging ourselves even more harshly. When two negative things reinforce each other, it's called a vicious cycle or vicious circle. And these circles often become spirals because the two parts not only sustain each other, they often expand and strengthen each other. This synergy can keep us locked or trapped in the trait, potentially for decades, for some, a lifetime. And it's part of a process which begins in childhood. Childhood abandonment leads to feeling unloved. Feeling unloved leads to feeling unlovable. Feeling unloved and unlovable opens the door to self-hate. Trait 11 is a manifestation of self-hate. In fact, I would argue that every trait is a manifestation of self-hate. If that sounds too harsh, swap out self-hate with self-love deficit, or what Ross Rosenberg calls self-love deficit disorder, caused by childhood abandonment. This is the foundation of the trait. Any questions? I didn't think so. Are you even listening? If you are, please click the thumbs up so I know you're there. Thank you so much. Okay, let's look more closely now at the two parts of this trait. The opening line, "We judge ourselves harshly," corresponds to what the ACA Program refers to as the critical inner parent, or critical inner voice. Whatever you call it, it points to the same thing: negative thinking directed at ourselves. When I worked the Loving Parent Guidebook, I learned to identify this critical inner parent voice. My first aha moment came when I realized it wasn't my parents' voice, it was my own. If it were my parents' voice, I would reject it. But since it was my own, I believed it, because I trust myself. This made me question every negative thought, which led to my second aha moment, that there was something underneath this critical inner voice, which was a set of critical inner beliefs, which are silent, so they don't get the attention that the voice gets. However, these critical beliefs aren't completely silent. They communicate through feelings and produce the very low sense of self-esteem mentioned in the second part of the trait. This is how it works. If I do something or even think about doing something that is contrary to my critical inner beliefs, my critical inner voice will chime in to correct me, as it were. Although sometimes it seems to chime in for no apparent reason. But since this all originates in the unconscious part of the mind, I can't say for sure there isn't a reason. I'm just not consciously aware of it. Perhaps the inner parent's goal is to create an inner environment where hopes and dreams cannot take root. Shame will create such an environment. This becomes part of an elaborate defense mechanism because hopes and dreams represent a threat. They may distract us from pending danger. To the critical parent, it's much more useful to stay focused on people-pleasing, getting others' approval, being overly concerned with others, scanning for angry people, identifying authority figures, as well as judging myself and others, etc. These are the things that keep us alive. These dysfunctional behaviors, which I just mentioned, should sound familiar. They're all traits on the laundry list. It shows how the traits, I believe all 14, depend on the negative self-judgment and low self-esteem mentioned in Trait 11. I see low self-esteem as part of the foundation of approval-seeking, Trait 2. If my self-esteem was healthy, then my need for approval would also be healthy. And it's normal and healthy to seek approval, for sure. But when my self-esteem is very low, as described in Trait 11, then the need for external approval gets dialed up and out of its normal and useful range. This unhealthy level of approval seeking is what creates Trait 2, because I'm willing to do or be whatever the other person wants, or what I imagine they want, in order to get their approval, including losing my own identity. So this is part of the cost of judging ourselves harshly. By the way, Trait 2, like Trait 11, is also circular in nature. Approval seeking leads to loss of identity. Loss of identity fuels the need for external approval. The two sides reinforce each other and classify as a vicious circle, which often morphs into a downward spiral, keeping one locked or trapped in the trait. And Trait 2 and 11 create a larger vicious circle. Low self-esteem in Trait 11 increases the need for external approval in Trait 2. Then the loss of identity in Trait 2 further decreases the low self-esteem mentioned in Trait 11. How can you have a healthy self-esteem if you don't know who you are? This creates an even larger and more powerful downward spiral. And this is the simplified version of how the traits support each other. While we've been busy living our lives, or trying to live our lives, our traits have been busy integrating themselves with each other in ways that only the unconscious mind could possibly be aware of. This takes step 1 to a whole new level. We are powerless over the effects of living with alcoholism and other family dysfunction, and our lives have become unmanageable. The integration of the traits is part of the effect. I invite you, the listener, to go through the list of traits and see if you can see the connection with Trait 11. I think it has more effect when you discover it for yourself, rather than having it pointed out. This may seem hopeless, that the traits are too entrenched to do anything about, but that's not the case at all. There is a solution. It depends on understanding the needs of two internal family members, our inner child and critical inner parent. It's not until the inner child feels safe and can let its guard down that the critical parent will stand down and stop judging ourselves harshly. This can only happen with consistent and abundant self-love. How do you do this? By working the program and working the steps. And that wraps up this video, which was meant to be food for thought. If you got something out of it, please click like and subscribe and forward to a fellow traveler. I'm Robbie Bobby. Thank you for listening, and as always, keep coming back.